In this business, there's no shortage of answers. The skill is knowing who to ask and what questions to ask. This is advice from Fidelity investment guru Anthony Bolton. And I'm lucky enough today to be in the Fidelity offices with Anthony Bolton. Anthony, you really became known as an investment guru through your Special Situations Fund. Can you please talk us through the theory behind it?
Yeah, it was one of the first funds we set up in London at the end of the 70s when I joined Fidelity. And it's a fund looking for growth, and it's an aggressive fund. And my style was to buy valuation anomalies. So I tried to find stocks that I thought were wrongly priced in the market, which hopefully would become correctly priced. Normally I took a sort of 1 to 2 year view. And when they became correctly priced, then I'd move on to trying to dig out the next anomaly.
And how relevant do you think that is today?
I think it's as relevant today as it was then. Now, the fund did mainly invest in the UK, and I've sort of said if I did it again today, I probably wouldn't restrict it so much just to one market because we live in a much more global world. But I think the approach is as relevant today as it was then.
How indicative of a fund manager's style is the type of person it attracts? And what do you think distinguishes a Fidelity fund manager?
We train most of our fund managers internally, so we've got a special way of doing it. They have to start as analysts, and they're with us normally for at least 5-6 years at least before they get a chance to be a fund manager. And that gives us really a long period to work with somebody and know if they've got the right personality, but also resources and intellect and all the skills you need to be an analyst, and then a portfolio manager. But I think one of the characteristics here, the good people we tend to keep long term, and I think we provide an environment where investment is sort of top of the tree. That's the most important thing. If the investment doesn't work, nothing else at Fidelity works. And I think that sort of environment attracts the right people.
Your book, Investing Against the Tide, has one of your golden rules as only investing in companies in whose management you trust. How well do you have to know that management to feel that trust?
I think that's where we have a great advantage because we meet management again and again and again. One of my things that I say is that often in the first meeting can be a bit misleading. The people who really impress you in one meeting may not be the best managers later. But what I found is if you meet them again and again and you look at what they say today against what they said before, and in fact, have they delivered on what they said they were going to deliver on? And we very much value sort of frankness and openness. Now, every management team puts some spin onto it, and they'll want to talk about the good bits, and they'll want to perhaps get away with not talking about the bad bits. And our job is to have a balanced view. We need to talk about everything. But the managements that are willing to talk about both, when you probe them on that's how we evaluate. Now, it would still be misled, but I think after several meetings you've got a pretty good feel.
You say that you should be able to summarise in a few sentences the rationale behind why you're investing in a particular company so that even your teenage children can understand. Are there companies that you've been put off by not being able to explain this simply?
No, I think nearly every stock that I've owned, I've been able to have what I call the investment thesis, which is this is a few sentences why you own it, the key reasons that you own it. And then the really important thing is to sort of be honest with yourself if something changes, because often things do change and maybe those original reasons are no longer valid. And then it's better just to sell, I think, and move on to the next one rather than to sort of say, well, maybe it'll come back, or maybe I'll make back the price I paid for it if it's gone down.
How important is self-discipline for an investor?
I think self-discipline is really important, and the business is about analysis and looking at companies and meeting management and assessing the franchise of the business, but it's also so much about yourself and controlling your emotions. I think to be a good investor you have to be quite detached and quite unemotional, and one of the things I say is that you mustn't let the successes go to your head, because we all get successes, but then you'll have failures as well. But you mustn't also get too ultra depressed when you have failures, because we all have them. And you've got to keep that balanced approach.
You've said that it's with the company balance sheets that you've made the most mistakes. Can you explain to individual investors what these were so that they can avoid making the same mistakes?
Perhaps because I've done it for so long, I've made more mistakes than most people. And if you're getting it right 60% of the time in investment, you're doing well. So 40% of the time, you're wrong. So I've done a lot of analysis of why it goes wrong, and particularly when it goes wrong, where you lose the most money. And I'm convinced about 2/3 of my mistakes are to do normally with balance sheets. And those are the companies. If a company has a weak balance sheet, i.e. a lot of debt or bonds outstanding, that's where, as an equity shareholder, you're most at risk when conditions deteriorate or the company conditions deteriorate. So what I would advise and recommend people is that they need to consider that aspect. When they're looking at a share, you're looking at the reward, but you're thinking about the risks. And certainly as regards the risks, balance sheets are really important. Now, I'm not saying never invest in a company with a weak balance sheet, but know if you are, you've got to do it very much with your eyes open. And if something changes, I think those are the ones to sell quickly, get out of quickly. Don't hang around in them.
The heart of your strategy is buying turnaround stocks. How can retail investors find these stocks?
Yeah, what I was looking for is something, often a company that had done poorly, but there were the first signs of things changing. Now, often that involved a new management team or certainly some changes in the management team. And it often involves some sort of restructuring. It may be a sale of part of the business or a major reorganisation of part of the businesses. Now, I think retail investors can spot those type of situations. Of course, then we have the advantage that we can meet the new management and talk in detail about what they're trying to do. And I very much like recovery situations where the management team said, look, there are a whole lot of things that we can do to make this business better. We're going to fix, a dozen different aspects of the business. And then you can track it as they progress. So I like lots of different things that they said they're going to do, and then you can follow how they're doing against what they said they're originally going to do. I think nowadays there's a lot more information available to investors, whether it's on the web or in accounts and stuff. So I think a private investor can follow some of that.
Where do you see the opportunities today?
Today we're in a low growth environment in the Western world, particularly in America, in Europe, because of the costs of solving the financial crisis has saddled us with a sort of debt burden, I think, that's going to weigh on our economies for the next few years. However, there are some parts of the world which aren't burdened with that, and many of that is in emerging markets. And I think probably as a sort of a theme, that would be my key theme, to look for areas of the world that can show better growth and make sure you have a decent exposure to those markets.
Thank you so much for your insight today, Anthony.
Thank you.